African Union are as slow as 13 or 12%. It's even lower. A very recent study undertaken by the African Court on Human and People's Rights indicates that it's only 9% of its decisions have been complied by member states. So making decisions is one thing, of course, it's the first step, that which is a good thing. But if it's not accompanied by implementation by the respective member states, it will be really difficult. And we also note that implementation remains a challenge within most of the members of the member states of the African Union. One of the reasons being, governments do not have a dedicated office and authorities which actually follows up on issues of implementation, monitoring, and reporting to these treaty bodies, both at the UN level and the African Union. We have countries like, for instance, Cameroon, South Africa, Burkina Faso, which have established specific authorities and agencies with allocated budget from the government, which actually follows up on issues related to implementation reporting to these treaty bodies. Hence, it enhances implementation. So this is one of the things that Kenya can actually look into. Is there a dedicated authority which is actually responsible for issues related to reporting and, of course, follow up on implementation of the decisions of these transnational bodies, both at the AU level and the United Nations level, because we are all working for the same cause. This is from our side, it's for the children's cause. That's one. Second, civil society organizations in some countries, we have noted that when these bodies make decisions, for instance, the African Committee of Experts, when it makes decisions, civil society organizations and national human rights institutions sit together and somehow develop an implementation matrix so that they can assist the government to implement the decisions of this one, so that they can work with the government to better implement the decisions. So there is a role from children, from civil society organizations and national human rights institutions to actually assist the government and to work with the government in ensuring full implementations of the decisions of these bodies. And of course, the last one is lack of accountability mechanisms. In most of the countries that the committee has looked into, the things of these bodies, including the African Committee of Experts, are not invoked before the court of law. So, of course, looking at even the recent decisions from the High Court of Kenya, on the case pending into this biometric, what was the name? Yes. If you see the decisions of the High Court, it made reference to the decisions of the African Committee of Experts on the right and welfare of the child in its judgment, which is a very encouraging thing, but it was just referred as inspirational kind of reference and not like binding. So that's also one of the challenges. So maybe as part of the discussion and even in the future, one of the things that we can look into is on the binding nature of this decision. There seems to be a general consensus and understanding that the decisions are not binding. So states have all the liberty to abide by the decisions if they want to. But we have a very different way of looking at things in this regard, because when Kenya ratifies the African Children's Charter, they are actually ratified, including Article 45 of the African Children's Charter, which gives the committee a mandate to consider communications and undertake investigations. So, in a way, they're obliged to comply with any of the decisions that the committee actually pronounces on. And the committee reports to the Executive Council, which is the policy organs of the African Union, and it's the Executive Council which actually endorses the decisions of these treaty bodies. So the Executive Council decision is binding on state parties of that. So this is for the state party representatives and representatives of civil society organizations to look into on the binding nature of the decisions of these treaty bodies. So colleagues, we're very glad from the Secretariat of the African Committee of Experts that this has been organized, and we really appreciate HRD and of course GIZ to support this process. We work with and for member states, so we're here to listen to the conversation and to assist the conversation if there is any information required from the African Committee of Experts for it to review. We're here to share that information, and we're very glad that we're part of this process. Thank you very much. Yeah, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Ayalu, that introduction of the committee and a view of the committee's expectations, aspirations about engagement. It's welcome to know that Kenya has been on the forefront among the countries that is reporting the most. And we thank our colleagues in government for this. You raise an interesting point, and I wonder, the countries that you speak that have an authority have engaged with the other types of international cases. So maybe we can have a conversation about the cases before the ICJ and ICSID and other international bodies where implementation is required. It makes no sense to then encourage the policymakers, the directors at policy-making level of ministry to think about an agency to interact with the implementation of international decisions, because they're increasing for the country, and one can expect that they will not get any less because we're engaging with the international community. So you remember the story of Manto's donkey? You remember Manto's donkey? Yeah. Let me start with the most important thing here. How? Please speak up, speak up. Is that still like music festivals in schools? Right? You participating? No? This is your chance to speak up. Introduce yourself. Did you hear the story of Manto's donkey? You did. Okay, we'll come back to it. But yeah, let's introduce yourself. Tell us your name, where you go to school.
My name is Ali Rashid.
Ali Rashid? Where do you go to school? CPK. Where is it?
Maki.
Okay. And how old are you? 14. So look what feel free to share. So I'll be asking you for some information as we go along. I know it's easier for us as adults to share what we want to do. So sorry? But those, how are you? How old are you? You're trouble. Do you go to the same CPK? Sorry? I am in primary school. So thank you. You sound very articulate. We'll be very interested to hear your views. I am interested in one thing on the community. Is there a Nubian here who was a child in the cases? Oh, okay. Yeah, because I thought there will be some personification of the idea of how long we have been waiting for this implementation, that the Nubian child whose name the case was filed has become a Nubian adult. And so maybe they can tell us their story from Nubian child to Nubian adult. Obviously, we'll be able to interact. With no real order, maybe we could start with you and an introduction.
My name is Salima Makuba. I'm presenting National Gender and Equality Commission.
From GEC, National Gender and Equality Commission. Do you have any advice for Matos Donkey?
Maybe later.
Maybe later. Yeah? Okay. We're wondering what to tell Matos Donkey, right? Hello. Thank you. An introduction, please.
One, I'm not aware of the donkey. My name is Rebecca Chinde. I work for Kenya Lands for the Advancement of Children, and I'm a lawyer, so this is quite interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. The president just assented to a new children's law. So, lot of interesting things that we may be thinking about in context of that. Whether we can hope that this new legal dispensation can help us achieve some of the gaps that we
My name is Priti Bichel.
It's in the channel.
Yes. From National Genius Foundation.
I cannot hear them.
My name is Christine.
Can you hear?
No.
Sorry.
I'm Christine Gishenso. I'm here to represent National Gender Equality Commission.
Any advice for Matos Donkey? Or should it be me telling you, you have to shout through the whole day? If you're not used to it. So, Punda it comes back to you. But thank you for being here.
My name is Yusuf Bashir. I work with an organization called Hakina Sharia Initiative. It's based in Garissa. Works mainly on the citizenship. I moved to here after I did the reports. The implementation of the decision.
So Yusuf, is your report, you'll be speaking to us later about the report that you prepared and where you think the gaps are. I think where you're working from is also an interesting situation because as I was thinking through today's documentation, it occurred to me that in the last 2 election cycles, some communities like the Makonde have received that recognition from no less a personality than the head of state. So, there are certain communities that are getting the recognition and others not. So, we've been thinking to think about that in the context of Kenya, how Kenya can implement the decision. So, welcome, Bashir.
I work with the Warren Bar Institute. I'm basically here just as a friend to the organizers and the children committee, GSA, the partners, and because you're also very keen on the issue of discussion that is in the
I forgot to ask both of you. So, any advice for Matos?
Well, how to uplift the oppressed classes, that would be asking. The first step is awareness of the problem.
You remember this oppressed class is me who has spent the whole day fishing for fish and I have tadpoles.
Yeah. So to create awareness of your situation, I think is always the first step.
Okay.
Create the awareness that you've been, in the words of Malcolm X, you've been duped.
I've been hard.
You've been hard.
I've been took.
Interesting.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I would say it doesn't need to necessarily to use soya. It's always a way out. You don't have to. Too many people doesn't have to.
You know, think about, put yourself again, it's me here. When I was, I need to remember your name. Ali Rafi. I'm Ali Rafi's age, yeah? Slightly young. So, who do I run? Remember, I have torn mosquito nets. And so the one who is now oppressing me is telling me, get used to it. So I don't want my mother to say, it's something for us to think. And how to deal with it.
Good morning. I have no idea what you're talking about. It's donkey business. I'm not like my name is Clarice Kariuki. I'm a council member.
Thank you. So the story was about a childhood experience I had with Mato, who other older boys took us fishing. The whole day of fishing and now don't sleeping in the house, all that, now we're going to cook. They laugh at us on the way. These are just when he says, "Punda ni kuzoea." Get used to the circumstance. So when you find yourself in this situation, me at that age, what do you do? Yeah, what advice do you have for this channel? What do you have for this Banjo's situation? Used to it, how, or playing how?
No, I don't think you should get checks to
You shouldn't get into an injustice.
No, we should. That's the wrong.
But he said to do what?
The thing is, yeah,
The wrong thing or to do the wrong things. Not it.
we don't always get something. And so they have YouTube, so let's get used to it. Again. So maybe my approach should change. Or is it me we should?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Wanda.
Okay, thank you. What advice you have for me? A few decades ago, I have to be smart. There's no way of me knowing. I found myself in this situation. Zigzagging? Yes.
My name Ali Mohammed. From the youngest member. The council. Process government depends how they implement the implementation that has been done. Because we are still there, moving and speaking about the donkey. I think it's a body to media.
Go again. Go again. I think the Kenyans in the room would remember the joke about Jibunia from Kenya or familiar from Kenya. Thank you so much. I am so thankful to our colleagues in government, both executive and the 15 commissions for being here. Because, you know, when you are just a citizen living your life, there's no country that government is really big things, right? And so, serikali. You know, so I hope we can have this dialogue. I don't know if this was planned, but we end up actually in a situation where we can meet and talk. But I think it has worked out well in terms of how we proceed.
Good morning. My name is Jan. I work at the Education for Shibia. Shibia works with mental health. Also, we work. Our idea is that we want so, rights for 5-year-old people. I learned what I fish truthfully. You can only change the circumstance. You cannot change Mato.
I can't change Mato.
You can seek help if Mato wants to. So find ways to deal with the bully.
That's interesting. In the framework of Kent, what do you think is Mato? The government. Any section of government or the whole of government? Government, AGs, chambers, or government in the executive. The executive. Interesting. Now, Mato is actually one of the guys I remember most fondly. Like it was a hard lesson I needed to learn. So I don't know, it's like he delivered it harshly but with love. I don't know, right? And you know the way you remember a bully and you remember no, you might remember in phone. So you think we could remember government phone? We're trying to imagine, we're trying to, now this is really based on something, situation of a different level, because we're all one society. And again, we're continuing.
My name is Siama Ismail, Libra, second youngest member of the Nubian Council of Elders, the Indian Council of Elders. My advice in terms of who that Tanzania is, that is bad and bad. For young you don't have to be told to jump. You already learned. So the next time you're asked to jump, you ask. So if you go fishing next time, you're for tadpoles, because you've already learned that those are tadpoles. So you can open up your eyes and your mind. So instead of fishing for tadpoles, we actually fish for fish. Even if it means small fish.
Okay. I need to say, yes, so I need to learn. So part of the learning, I don't know whether I suggested it, but I did explain it. Part of the learning was my mother cookies. Remember, I got you to notice that I've got mosquito. So who's my mother? Is there an agency that could be controlling the bad behavior? You think there's an agency?
Having the children have their lives. And also the police, the age,
The ages could be my mom's cooking skill. Yeah. I'm asking in the sense of, I'm not to put you on the spot, but I'm asking in the sense of, but we understand these agencies and how they see themselves in this big structure that is government.
well, in the sense that you do
In the sense that you give advice. Okay, and so we can run to you and say we give advice even if it's with a cooking skill. Which agencies do you give advice to the government agencies? So is the community, can they approach your office?
because you're so protected.
Okay, so you protect the rule of law. It's the charge of your office. It doesn't mean that you'll be listened to by Mato, but at least you can say, Mato, don't listen to the small things. I was seeing this structure of this, but it's called Kapsoya. I grew up in a place called Kapsoya. If you know where Kapsoya is. Today it's all built up, so that little quarry, I think, I don't even know where it is now.
So what don't be young donkey. First, we don't put in stuff that is going to do it, so it can't change that much. Young donkey can't change that. But that was has changed. But again, we will take this form of into condition. Next time, we will not go out to the next time, we will know to do better.
So who should teach small humphrey? But this is a that role and not a fish.
It's just like,
You know, I think my first one is supposed to. He said, no, I'm small, yeah, and this thing that I see, the big guy, it's not really. I mean, when I look back, I really think Mark was supposed to be. But you know, as a child, you think he's the one who will teach me, but he's going to play a prank on me, to pull my leg. So why do I like it?
in this. So that now that you can do it today, then you know that tomorrow, until once you again, go back to the story and come back to it.
Okay. Do you think you always could play the role of my mom's movies?
Yeah.
And then who is it beating?
I don't think it would play that well. That the function was wrong, but it was criminal and the extent of it, and interpret the law how to do that. So that's
This adult world, everybody says I have my jurisdiction. And you are feeling like a victim.
you're running a victim because of that. You're not a victim for being in that once. Even if you've got fish, you still get punished for
You want to remember when I was 12 years old. Thank you so much, sir.
Good morning. My name is Richard Komichamusu. President of the Social Forum to talk about yes. I have responsibility of the situation.
Okay, yes.
And no.
You say no. Okay. That was every situation to say no. Do you have I think from the position that you're coming from, you have interesting insights from the other instances from other countries where something like this has been spoken about? But we'll be coming to you with some of those things. So, but small companies should just take responsibility. Like for instance. No, this is here around.
Because developing, help me, Richard,
So this is the area
let's get,
yes.
depending on the age, at 5 years, that child is about
Age
the
of
capacity, about the capacity. At the age of 5, that child is exploring. Actually, they're the most amazing kids. If you want ideas, the 4 to 6 year olds are the ones who have amazing ideas. They have been altered by the worries of the world. So I think this little Humphrey, I didn't hear the whole story, I came halfway. Then Humphrey was thinking, if it is this age, they were actually just and they have seen this fish. And their head, they want to catch this fish as they saw it. So they're just being exploratory, and it's not their cost that they are being, it's just their age, their capacity, their age that is being. And then this big boy, Mato, is taking advantage.
And my is just 9, maybe 10.
Yeah, okay. But he has his developing capacity. He knows at 4 or 5 years. Okay, so for I'm thinking that this little country is exploring his world around him. Okay, it's all fishing, maybe, or told about fishing, and it's going to fish. So I don't think we want to put so much pressure or responsibility of him exploring. It was just part of his learning.
Yeah. Does the government, we say, the government, right? We say exactly, right? Does government realize that it's also just like 4 years old? If we are citizens that change. In this story, government is just the older child who knows slightly. Do you think that recognition is there in government? The government should grow, that it doesn't know everything. Sorry.
We haven't moved better.
Wait, I don't know. Hi, how are you?
My name is Mr. Letter.
Okay.
It's very expensive.
The packaging is an exporting. Paying on that. But at least the idea that we can, that Little Humphrey, there's a lot of messaging to Little Humphrey to rethink their position. And learn from the Duke a whole of change. And I like that message. Any one of us. At some point, I would hope that even institutions will come and think themselves as Little Humphrey, where we are all evolving, moving towards something.
That's one thing. I believe that what's the with some friends that we are having a lot of and not one mistake.
Thank you. Thank you. So the message for now. Message for Matro. Yes.
Based on child participation and production, you can see there. And there is the children, the two children from there, they are sentencing.
They brought you here.
Yes. And I think let me just talk about the two. The girl you see there is actually an official of the Kenya Children's Assembly, under the sub-county and the county level.
Excellent. Which you?
Here with her friend. Yeah, so they're here to represent the group of children. And also, don't be shy. Here, be free and speak. And my message. If we were talking about children, let's take the children. Let them enjoy the experience, where they get fish or time house to they are both like experience. Yes, let's not support them, but eat them.
Let's not afford to blame. That's an interesting way of creating the dialogue that we would have to think about the gaps in the edition. Where can we move on here? We're going to do something at a time. Where can we move on?
My name is Shafi Hussein from story of my tour. Just say no one can do it.
So Matu would know that the donkey does get. So donkey doesn't just get it. That's an interesting aspect of the story, right? So even if you urge donkey to get used to it, it might not actually happen.
We are part, we are, you know, we are part of it. Even ourselves, the government itself, people who work in the government, people who come from the society. At the end of the day, we live together. That's why you see here, we are all mixed up. One is sitting on that side, one is sitting on that side. Country, very so, on the issue of arms trade, maybe I would say, so arms trade, because at the end of the day, it's the defense of operation, so right. If you're being oppressed, sure. As for Mato, there are different ways of impacting knowledge. Maybe he used the way out. It depends now how resilient the after it. We need what you learn from certain lessons, you need to be resilient. Whatever situation you're facing, it's not that situation is not permanent. You need to be resilient, fight for your rights, take
And Matu can change.
Matter can change definitely. That's why we are having the I think most people have seen Mato is the government. And if that was the case, no, how they say Mato is the government? The government does. The government is there for the people, there to serve the people. At the end of the day, the people, the government, the people are the ones who appoint the government through their, exercising their
So does Mato, government does Mato realize that? I think one thing that the brother Gay mentioned was in his opening remarks. I think this is
Then we had another one of wrong detention of a certain army colonel of Rwanda. We had a number of, we have one in the case of the superhighway through Serengeti National Park. We also had actually a case on the election violence in Kenya, 2007. So basically, I'm saying this because this is another forum where human rights issues are litigated, and where we also have issues of implementation. You not mention land rights, just like the Nubian case here. We had also a number of land cases, land-related cases, and the issue of implementation. The court adjudicated matters is an issue at East African community level because it involves a lot of goodwill from the governments. When they feel like they will implement and enforce, when they don't feel like they will just let go, nothing follows after that. I want to talk about EACJ, Standard Court of Justice, as let's say a human rights mechanism, like we know them. But I would rather, if you were to invite an officer from the registry of the court to come and talk about EACJ as a human rights mechanism, I think you would rather invite someone from my side, the secretariat, because we're the one who want to litigate for the EACJ. So that person will not talk about the EACJ as freely as I would, because me, I go as a litigant, then they are there to prepare draft judgments for judges, and there is a lot of politics in that. So while the African Court of Human People's Rights is considered a human rights mechanism, it's a bit different, as we are like a national court. See, where you have AG chambers litigating in their own courts. And East African Court of Justice, where you have the community litigating before the court. So I think Mazoea can also be a problem where human rights monitoring mechanisms think that only regional courts can give them good information about human rights in the regions. May have to change their minds, maybe go through the political arm of organizations to find out if there is no institution that can give them better information. Come back to Mato. I think Mato is a great child. A very great child. In fact, I know at that level, all of us experienced some fellows like Mato. Mato, if you compare it to the government, I think it's more than government. Executive, it's a parliament, he makes the law, he makes judgments, he's the police, he will arrest if you don't comply with his rules. So Mato is a very powerful, he's a very powerful person trying to exercise his leadership skills at his age. So you have to understand that actually he's trying to make Humphrey become a very, another Mato after him. So with all the weaknesses that the whole system has, try to understand Mato as a very powerful child, actually trying to make Humphrey become the better he is. Thank you.
Should Mato listen to his own advice? Or should he also change?
Mato is a very clever person. He makes the laws. He makes sure they are complied with. And he monitors it, but I'm pretty sure Mato listens to Humphrey somehow. And without telling Humphrey that he's going to comply, he can do something about it if Humphrey says something about it.
Mato?
My name is Maka Yusuf. I work with the Nubian Rights Forum. With regards to Mato and Humphrey, as much as Mato is powerful, he's big, huge, articulative, I feel like Mato ought to know better. And he shouldn't take advantage of the naivety of Humphrey. As much as he's big, he's articulative, he's powerful and all that, he shouldn't take advantage of Humphrey. Mato should change. Mato should adapt to changes and has to have the will to know better and also learn not to take advantage of someone's weakness.
So can we think of Mato as the class 8 boy now? He's going to Form 1. You remember the transition from primary school to secondary? 1 year, you are the biggest boy. The next year, you are the smallest.
Yeah.
And if you didn't learn in Form 1 that what you are doing in class 8 was bad, well, these days is something else.
Yes.
Yeah, it will come. It doesn't happen yet. But yeah, so, so maybe Mato can go to Form 1 and realize that they are Form 4s. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Hussein Mohammed, the Nubian Youth Council Chair. I'm humbled to be here today. In regards to the issue of Mato and Humphrey, what I'll say, Humphrey is just young, learning and also exploring. But Mato, this is the executive. I want to give a good example, apart from using the story of Mato and Humphrey. Yesterday we saw Mato reducing the price of unga from 230 to 100 shillings. But Humphrey has been suffering for a long period. The decision came a few days to election. That tells you Mato has all the decisions, but it is only him who will decide when to do it. Just relate it to what you've given us today.
I want to bring, hi, sorry. Okay, my name is Jennifer Kaberi. I work with Total News, and I'm friends with IHRDA and the CSO Forum. And I'm being told by the guys here, the task force. Yes, I'm going to say, I'm representing also the task force on children matters. So, for me, I want to bring Mato's mom. No, is it Mato's or Humphrey's mom, right?
A cooking stick.
I'm just going to skip this cooking stick. I'm just going to go back to Mato's mom. So I'm looking at Ayelo as Mato's mom, right? Ayelo is just someone from the commission.
Yes, on Zoom.
Just the committee.
Oh, yes.
That he's from the committee. I was hoping the commission. Maybe he can be daddy. So I'm looking at them having, because they are bigger, they have a wider view. You know, as a mom, you know, these kids they don't know that they are growing.
okay, and they know and what they are doing to, like for example, the responsibility of the mom goes beyond chapa, caning, caning the Humphrey, okay, or Mato, whoever is being caned at this, into giving guidance, okay, and into giving direction, okay, to caring, okay. So I'm looking at Mato's mom from that perspective, beyond chapa into, okay, for those who are not Kenyans, beyond caning into to checking what else can I be able to do to get, so that next time Humphrey is not going to cut the net, okay? Because if for example Mato's mom had told Humphrey, this net helps us not to get malaria, okay? So please do not cut it. They will be more keen. Mato will not be able to cut, okay? So what is the role of these international bodies, the UN, the African Union, into ensuring that our children are safe? So I'm going to bring in the role of Mato's mom into this conversation, okay? I can't remember what is the donkey. I think the donkey has a role. I wish I can remember the donkey.
So
the
this
donkey is Humphrey.
Thanks for bringing in. So the cooking stick is a symbol of what makes food. So the cooking stick is a symbol of mom's provision.
Yes.
But this time it was wielded. Now, I'm teaching you about the African human rights system, right? So she has said that the committee is our moms. Mato's mom, maybe the commission is Mato's mom, and the committee is my mom.
No. Mato, the committee and the commission, one of them is the mom, the other one is the dad.
Is the dad.
Yeah.
Because then I'm thinking, I don't know, I hear it happens less these days. But when we were growing up, mom was mom of all children.
Yes.
So you can't say, you're not my mom, you're not beating me. Mom goes and sees another child from another home. Pinch a bit, just a bit to teach, right? Which I think is what the committee and the African Human Rights System and the Commission is doing. You've got all these kids in the neighborhood called Africa, and maybe one is influencing another, and so you must pinch from time to time. So I'm wondering, this cooking stick, could we see them as the recommendations of the committee and the court? That they seem punishing, but they are supposed to encourage little Humphrey and little Mato to grow, to change. So today we'll be thinking a lot about these recommendations.
So Humphrey, I want to say the ugali, okay? So the main role of the cooking stick is not to chapa. The main role of the cooking stick is to cook, is to provide, is to protect, right? Food is a right? Is to protect, okay? So and I'm thinking when it is used, okay, as an alternative of how it's not supposed. So we need to see how we can need to wait, okay? So let's bring the ugali or whatever, the nyama, whatever the cooking stick is being used for, into the mix here, okay? So maybe the mom was, if you're an African mom,
usisahau wali wada.
Oh, okay, pole sana Waswahili umesahau. So okay, but you're cooking. Yeah, so but you're cooking, right? And then mtoto wako anakuja anasema, "Oh, nani amefanya? Si unatoka na hiyo mwiko hivi." Remember the role of the mwiko ni kupika, si ndio? Sio kuchapa. So can we look at the role of the mwiko? The primary role of the mwiko is to provide.
And so both Mato and little Humphrey should see the recommendations.
Yes.
As the spaces where they should grow.
Yes.
From class 8 to form 1.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Brian King. Sorry, I am with Journal News. I am a trained child journalist, but I also represent children from an African level for the Pan-African Child Organization. I guess for me, when it comes to Mato and Humphrey, To Humphrey, I think I'd first of all tell him to take home all the lessons they've learned. They might not have learned how to fish, but they've learned how not to fish.
Okay, we learn how not to fish.
I mean,
that's what.
okay, but then again, you can say that Mato needs to change, or maybe it's Humphrey who needs to change, and Mato get a new Mato who actually teach him how to fish. No, it's about learning.
Let's start with each other.
It's about adapting, right? Adapting and learning, right? So if today you went and I got tadpoles instead of fish, next time when we go, I'll know what not to take. So it's for the lessons. And then for me, from my perspective, the cooking stick is a representation of how we misuse the power to provide fish. By, I mean, if the cooking stick is being used to represent provision from the parent,
that's beautiful.
How the parent provides, then by using it to cane is to, manipulate your ability to provide to change some type of behavior. So I think for me, the cooking stick is used to represent misuse of resources to punish, like what you said, manipulating the prices of food to control the citizens' behavior. So I guess that's what I'm getting from my perspective.
Thank you.
Jina langu ni Ali Yusuf, ni second vice chairman ya Kenya Nubian Council of Elders. Asante.
Mimi naitwa Nubian Saad. Tunakuja kusikia ni member wa Kenya Council of Elders. Niko hapa leo kusikia Mato amesema nini kwa Humphrey.
Good morning, everyone. I'm called Abiba Ahmed. I'm also a member of the Nubian Council of Elders. At the risk of sounding like I'm whining, I want to categorically say Mato is the country. Mato is the country. Then, Mato is the government. The country is the mother, and the cooking stick is the CSOs, including the international ones. That is my perspective. And now, still at the risk of sounding like I'm whining, I'm going to tell all the government agencies, please implement all these things. And we wouldn't maybe have these sittings. Just implement, please, the government. The people who are here representing the government. And Mato is abusing trust.
Mato is abusing trust.
Because Humphrey trusted him. So Mato should not abuse trust. We should discourage him from abusing trust. Young as he may be, he should not abuse trust. And I had the cooking stick should work on.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Sarah. Yes, Humphrey.
Through the mask. Recognize.
This mask causes
yes, go ahead.
Anonymity. My name is Sarah Muthiga. I work in the Office of the Ombudsman, that is the Commission on Administrative Justice, one of the Chapter 15 commissions, whose mandate includes cooking stick, but without the powers to hit, but maybe to provide some other role of guidance of some kind, which we will talk about more in the course of the day. My advice to both Humphrey and little Humphrey and Mato is that first of all we should ask ourselves, why did Mato and Humphrey get the opportunity to do this misconduct? What was lacking? Is it information? Is it guidance? Is it supervision? And I'm talking about information as one. So government did something because they were lacking. But now that the provided information and framework is there, then how come they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing? And then in terms of follow-up and provision of information and guidance, what are the gaps? What are the challenges? Why did Humphrey use the mosquito net? He didn't have a fishing rod, just for example. Why didn't he know what a fish looks like? He thought it's a tadpole. So with all those questions in mind and perhaps answers that are all in this room, I go back to what my neighbor has said, just do the right thing and then you can make this mistake. But that would be very simplistic at this point. I'm just saying let us dialogue and see how far we can. Thank you.
It's the commission. Is it Mato? Is it Humphrey?
No.
Which kid is it in the neighborhood?
The commission is like this this auntie and the
it's an auntie.
Yeah. Not like Mato's mother's older sister who's supposed to oversight over what is supposed to be happening. Why I say Mato's mother is because I'm not so sure Mato is the government. I feel like Mato is one of the implementers, one of the agencies of government who is supposed to work but isn't working. And that is why they run amok and say, you've learned now your lesson now, you know? And the question is there someone else who can then make sure they're supposed to be doing what they're supposed to be doing? And therefore it's a whole network as we are trying to place it in this conversation.
Yes. And I thought that reflection on complexity, right? The government itself struggles to organize itself. And I think that's a reality that I think we probably need to be more aware of and figure out how to work. So, this neighborhood where this aunt who maybe can pinch this child but not the other child because of neighborhood dynamics. But, thank you.
Good morning, my name is Julie Ojambo. I'm representing the Network of African National Human Rights Institutions. Unfortunately, I came in when the Mato-Humphrey analogy had already been discussed, but I'm listening in on the conversation and I'll continue to contribute as it goes forward. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Lydia Winnie Kembarazi. It's good to put a face to all the emails I received and sent, and I'm the advocacy officer at the Institute for Human Rights and Development in Africa. Thank you for being here. I will contribute to the analogy later.
You said that they are Uganda.
No,
They are Uganda.
So it arrives.
Okay.
Yes, then people.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Fatma Jagana from the Gambia. I work at the Institute for Human Rights. Thank you so much for coming.
A quick intro.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Caroline Perez from the National Council for Children's Services. I'm sorry I came in late and I missed the Humphrey and Matthew story. I hope I will catch up a little bit later and probably contribute. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Small from the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. My apologies, I also came in a bit late. I've been trying to follow the discussion, and what I've gathered so far is that the mwiko can be used both as a nourishment or as a sources of food, and also for guidance. And I believe that is how the recommendations of this regional human rights mechanism should be taken, both to guide on how to basically realize the rights that are protected, and also correct where these countries are going wrong. Thank you very much, and apologies.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rizan Masuna. I'm a senior advisor at the GIZ African Union office. With regards to Mato and Humphrey, my take is that there's a Mato and Humphrey in all of us. We're all duty bearers, but also we have responsibilities.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Oludayo Fagbemi. I'm a senior legal officer with the Institute for Human Rights and Development in Africa, together with my colleagues here. I do not have advice for Mato and Humphrey because so much has been said, but I have advice for mutual friends of Mato and Humphrey who would have spoken out when Mato was taking advantage of Humphrey. They have a duty.
Thank you, dear colleagues. My name is Edmond Foley. I am also at the Institute for Human Rights and Development in Africa. I work as the Director of Programs. At some point in our lives, together with Mr. Saul, I don't know where we place ourselves in all of this, but perhaps help to stop the advantage, the taking advantage of at some point, yes. And so we are happy that we are all in this space, and like Rezan said, we have it in all of us. And we would ensure that at some point in time, we do not become too much of Humphrey, we do not become too much of Mato, and keep a balance and get to the end. Thank you.
There are always these guys who do the technical stuff in the background. Have you been in those meetings? We've been there for 3 days. Yeah. These guys are just filming us. And then they go away and we never know them. So today, you just say hi. It's coming to you.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is John Tiga, and I'm a technical team in charge of live streaming the event. The event is live on Total News YouTube channel. So as it goes, I work from Total News as an online editor.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Caleb. I'm a videographer at Total News. Asante.
Thank you so much. I think we had Philip from the committee. We probably, he's dropped off. When he comes back, he'll introduce. Please forgive me for having taken so long to do this introductory session, because I thought there's a way we could loop in our ice breaking about who we are with the introductions, because it's so hard to have a dialogue when you don't know who you're dialoguing with, and not laugh over a thing or two. So I'm so thankful for the stories. When I go back in time, I will tell little Humphrey the advice I have received. I want to tell a story I heard when I worked at the Inter-American Court of Human Rights about there is a case, and this is to thank really the different agencies of state who are here. This is it's called the Street Children's case at the Inter-American Court. So when the case came for hearing, let me tell the facts of the case. When the case came for hearing, one of the grandmothers of the street children who had been a victim in the matter now came up to speak. And she went to the podium, and the judge president said, "Madam, to tell us your name." He said her name, and then she was asked, "What would you like this court to do for you?" What lawyers call, what are your prayers? And this grandmother starts crying and cries and cries and cries so much that Judge Macaulay, who was a Jamaican judge on the court, came from the judge's bench. You know, the judge's bench up there, came down and hugged her, and they cried together. So the court is just watching them cry it out. And afterwards, when she's calmed down, Judge Macaulay goes back to the bench and she composed herself. And then Judge President asks, "Why were you crying?" And she said, "This is the first time I have seen government. They're actually here to listen to me. Thank you for making that space possible." I think that story always resonates with me, even in my other life when I'm a teacher of human rights law and I'm trying to remind my students that this area of law is about human beings and listening to each other, as you rightly say, right? And so I am so thankful for this long introductory period. We will truncate a bit of Yusuf, so I'll see you on the side for Daniel and see how to truncate and work it into what we've already had a conversation about, so that we begin to already think, what are the gaps and how can we think together? Because after all, now we're going to have time. So thank you so much. I think we can go for break. Photo session. So, please.
So, dear colleagues, we would go downstairs to quickly take a family photo in front of the hotel, and then we come and take our break. The photographers are ready. Thank you.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Okay, guys, again, thank you so much. I hope we've had a good break. And we are now energized. We're now energized. So allow me to jump straight. We can continue to have our bitings as we transition. I have asked our hosts that I take a bit of liberties with our program. So I want us to begin to touch on the afternoon's agenda now, while at the same time dealing with the current agenda, which is background. I mean, which is the report of the consultant. This is how I hope we can do it. Rather than we have government perspective, community perspective, I want us to jump straight to the cooking stick. Mama ametuandalia chakula na ameweka pilipili kidogo. Mom has made some dinner for us and she has sprinkled it with some chili. Let me tell you the story of me and chili in Gambia. So, a much older Humphrey is still young. He's young, he's not young at all. Much younger Humphrey goes to the Gambia. And there he finds two elder brothers, two more matos. Now, in the world I grew up in, there is not much chili being eaten. And these my elder brothers are so welcoming. They are constantly welcoming me with food. Food that is full of pepper. The cooking stick. Now, that was a true case of the donkey just has to get used to. Today I don't even have breakfast. You see the sweet potatoes? I need to have a chili to bite. I got so used to taking chili because of two matos here who are conveniently looking away. They did not participate. I recall, but in particular, one lunch we had at the parish, Edmond, that began. It's 2 in the afternoon on a feast day. You are actually hungry, right? You've been smelling the food being cooked. And the first thing that is brought is a bowl of pepper soup. Your stomach is empty. And then you start wondering, should I start? And you see everybody is continuing, eh? So you realize you're the only one being left behind. So you can see, young Humphrey and old Humphrey did not learn much. Eh? I need to deal with my peer pressure issues. So the recommendations. I'd asked Yusuf that we'll have an interactive conversation where, in a sense, Yusuf will be presenting. Just that I'll be asking him questions and he can help us answer. And in the meantime, remember it's our dialogue. Right? So if something strikes your mind, anything, a thought, a comment, a feeling, a memory, just put up your hand and let's discuss it as we discuss the recommendations. So we start from the recommendations themselves. So let's start with mom number 1, the African Committee of Experts. The recommendations from the decision. Sorry, I'm a teacher, so I feel like I need to write while talking.
So, dear colleagues, as part of our policy, when we do this, we just want to remind you, we'll be taking photos. If anyone doesn't feel comfortable, for the photo to be taken, if the photographer comes, you can just nicely decline. They understand. But just note that we'll be taking photos. It's really not for purposes of putting anyone in trouble, just for the record. But if you really do feel uncomfortable, you can just nicely signal the photographer. They'll not take your photo. Thank you.
So Yusuf and I are having a conversation
in your midst. So interrupt us, ask us questions, remind us of something we have forgotten. The committee of experts. What do they tell Mato?
They tell Mato that the government, Mato is the government, sorry.
Contested.
We take all necessary legislative, administrative, and other measures to ensure that the children of Nubian descent in Kenya that are otherwise stateless can acquire a Kenyan nationality and the proof of such a nationality as well. So basically, the Kenyan government should take all necessary steps, legislative, administrative, and otherwise, to ensure children of Nubian descent acquire Kenyan nationality and proof of that.
Okay. Thoughts, comments? Have you seen how your birth certificate looks like? Huh? Tell us something about your birth certificate. One.
Brothers, many problems of taking birth certificate.
There is?
Many problems. The government tell you to go bring your ID, your mother's ID and your father. And they will call you to come and take that back.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. So you mentioned government will ask for mom's ID and dad's ID, right? And you mentioned the word problems. I will write in red, but not because it's a problem, but because it's something that I'm trying to flag. Mheshimiwa, tell us something about your birth certificate.
Hello guys. Okay, my birth certificate. I was not born in Kibra exactly, but I was born in Garissa. Your place.
Me too.
But I could just say about Kibra taking birth certificates.
Tell us about Garissa, and then you tell us about Kibra.
Okay, I was born in Garissa at a hospital known as PG Health.
Me too.
So I didn't experience more about that because I was young and I didn't knew more about that.
Yeah. That's interesting, yeah, that you don't get to realize how your birth certificate is made, right? Yeah. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
How does it look? What does it look? Speaking to myself.
It has my mom's name, my dad's name, my name, but I have only 2 names. I don't have 2 names.
Okay.
The day I was born. No, I don't know exactly. Because Romantica, 30th August 2009. And my mom just told me I'm 29.
Ah, so there's an error in the date. You've made young, older. That much. You've been made younger.
Older.
You're born at 29, but you didn't catch it. So Mheshimiwa is officially younger than he is actually by a day. So the day of your retirement from the Children's Assembly, we must find a case to find out. But it's interesting. When my daughter was born, so yeah, I should ask this, but so the birth notification is given at the hospital, no problem. We go to now the registration bureau, which is proper. If you,
Humphrey, can I intervene?
Yes.
By asking a question.
Please go. Yes, this is a conversation.
How come that date issue has not been fixed?
On 29th
Oh, sorry, miss.
Yeah, because on 29th was a Sunday and it was like a public day or something. So they just written 30th because 30th was on Monday. So it just fits in there.
You have something else? Yes.
I think there's a problem with the registration. There are a lot of errors that happens in birth certificates. Maybe the name, side is a date. So for us, like for example, the Nubians, it's a long process that you have to. When you want to change, you have to have an affidavit. It's a long process that sometimes you feel like I have to leave it the way it is. In some instance, we have like somebody. I used to know a woman who was called Zamzam, for example. But when it came to her name, it was written Samson.
Yes.
You imagine such an error. But she had to live with that document until almost to the end of her life. So because the process is very long, that you have to go to court, to show an affidavit. The same time you go from the court, when you take the document there, no, they tell you have to go to a lawyer to do it. So it gives a lot of problems that sometimes people feel leave it the way it is. So those are the problems that people face.
Sharia, water.
Well, it is true that the procedure to actually change your name in Kenya is quite lengthy, bureaucratic, and actually needs the services because changing of a name would actually require a document called a deed poll, which is of course something that you need a lawyer to do for you. So I agree with him that the procedure is a bit lengthy.
But is it a name change or a correction? No.
A correction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it a name change or a correction?
Whether it's a correction or a name change, it should still have to go through the deed poll.
Really?
And there's a cost implication. And
What
also
is the cost implication?
it depends also on the timing, yeah? Because I know for children, they have that window. Once a child has been born, you're supposed to go and when you get the birth notification, as you well put it, you're supposed to do apply for the birth certificate within the first 6 months of their life. If you do it after the 6 months, I mean, I think you have 2 years. I think you have a 2-year window to play around with that issue, right? What you register and then the change of the names. But after the 2 years, that's when the issues of deed poll kick in and it becomes now another.
The question I wanted to ask is, these lengthy processes for making alterations to the birth certificate, are they the same lengthy processes for everyone?
Yes.
Or they differ in some cases?
This is precisely what I was getting at. So the first iteration of my daughter's birth certificate came with a spelling error in the name. Okay, it took us a lot of visits to the upper hill, Has Plaza. And actually, I was with someone who's not a Kenyan on a number of those trips. And they themselves just noted, Somalis have problems, there are many here. And the point I'm trying to make is that it was laborious for me.
Yes,
Is it more laborious for you?
Of course.
Well, why of course? Why is this of course?
I wanted to contribute on the issue of errors. Majorly, you see like her error, the one for the date, the error has been made with the hospital staff. Civil registry can't do anything about it. The problem is now the hospital officials usually make these errors. And with the changing of name, you can only change the name of the child, but not the name of the parent, regardless of the error. And they say that you can't, because you've tried several times to make corrections on a parent. Remember, this is a child's birth certificate. The error has been made on the parent's name.
So you try make a rectification on the error of the parent's name, but it's rejected. Reason being that the law says that they can't open the register for the hospital. So you wonder, where do you get the remedy from?
The lawyers, does the law actually say this, or is this a wrong official being Mato? Oh, the lawyers. Yes, sorry.
What you say, we are lawyers that may not know all the laws and what they provide us. But it's something we can very, what I normally say in this situation. There are two things. There's the issue of access to information, and that includes access to what is the procedure and what are the timelines. There's a requirement of all government agencies to have a service charter that provides what are the services and what are the timelines for this. The fact that we're all in this room and talking about amendments to errors and all that, it means there's a gap in terms of the information that's being provided for not only more vulnerable groups in terms of the ones who are having more trouble with this access. But the question is, then how do we fix it in terms of, I currently sit here and I have no idea what it takes to change an error in a button. I know what it takes to change a name, it won't change a name. But you can imagine that.
Can she come to the ombudsman?
Yes, she can, in this way. There are two things. One, the ombudsman wants to address maladministration, delays, any injustices that public officers and officials and institutions, national and county governments have failed to address. So if you've been, I can tell you majority, we have very many cases against many agencies. But for example, what you're grappling with is you apply for birth certificate, you apply for, your birth certificate, change of errors, amendment of errors, you have proved that you have attempted to have this change and it's not working. That's what you do. Then engage the relevant government agency to address it.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I think you have just, preempted what would have had at the end of the discussion on the way forward, which is very brilliant. That actually she's realized there's a gap, and that their office can then now engage maybe hospitals, since they're saying there's no opening of a register, which I think is a dead end. If you can't actually change at that point in the hospital, then what remedy do you have? So I'm glad that the Ombudsman Office for Administration of Justice is here. And she specifically says they address delays. So I think that's something, and injustices. It's something that maybe the communities affected can take note of to quickly remedy all those issues that they have.
And I'm curious, okay, I'm thinking because what I wanted to not really do, like I said, I'm going to take some liberties with the program. Slight liberties, is to sprinkle the conversation with the implementation question. I mean, we'll come at the end, the last 30 minutes and say, okay, what have we said we will do? Yeah, but let's keep us thinking immediately. What can we do about it? So you're collecting a case for her. I'm teasing this one out.
Thank you so much for the beautiful contribution. As we keep thinking about our situation and the solutions that are coming, up, I'd like us to throw our minds into the Data Protection Act 2019, which talks about data protection, access of the same data, and I'm taken to Section 26, which talks about the rights of a data subject, want to be informed of the use of this data, to access their personal data in custody of a data controller or data processor, to object the processing of data, there's a right to correction of false, misleading data, and there's a right to deletion of false or misleading data about them. So she's come to a realization that this data about herself is not true. In light of this recent time, it's 2019, but it's recent. We can have those discussions and throw in bits and pieces of this act. Yeah.
You want to say something?
Yes.
So I am sorry for the delay, but yeah.
Thank you. Maybe if you allow me, I want to go back to what Yusuf just read out. the recommendation is about making it possible or maybe easier for Nubian children to acquire Kenyan nationality. So the issue here is nationality. So it may be important for us to make that connection, probably to say registration, probably make it easier for you to work on acquiring your nationality. So I think when we discuss nationality and registration, we need to make that connection. Yeah.
Yes, your report speaks for this, yeah? So please just highlight.
Thank you. I think it talks about legislative, administrative, and other measures. So if we start with what has happened with regard to legislation around ensuring, since the decision came, around ensuring that Nubian children are able to acquire nationality at birth, has there been a change since the decision came down? So the decision came down in March of 2011. In August of 2011, the Kenyan government passed the Citizenship and Immigration Act, which had a series of provisions around statelessness, around acquisition of nationality and dual nationality. However, there has been no express resolution of the Nubian problem, simply because the Mother Act, when it comes to registration of individuals, especially when it comes to IDs, there's a problem with IDs. She said it. She said, Ali said it. He said they require the ID. So you have to move a step back, realize Nubian parents don't have IDs. The child is being asked daily the ID of the parent to be given the vaccine. So the Registration of Persons Act, which is another act that was passed in 1947 and came into force in 1949. This act is still influential when it comes to access to the ID and presents a very big problem vis-a-vis the Kenya Citizenship and Immigration. So that's the point which I wanted to make, that the process for acquisition of Nubians specifically has not yet been specifically addressed in terms of this issue. And the act that is sort of key hurdle for the Nubians, which is the Registration of Persons Act, is amended positively in order to address this issue.
I'll come to this because my brother Bukona spoke about Matu and the price of Unga. And I wonder what is the situation of the Makon. Were they affected by the same? So I'll come back to you. But you have to mention that.
Yeah. I'd like to be practical. I'll give a practical example, because when it comes to registration of birth certificates, my birth certificate came. I think my mom had it in her possession for a very long time. So when she handed it over to me, I'll always write my name the way my dad told me it's spelled. So when my birth certificate came to me, my mom handed it over to me. There was some letters missing in my dad's name and my name. So I had to go through the process. Okay, one name was rectified. It took a while, like up to 3 months. Then my name now, but my dad's name was misspelled again. So after being misspelled, I went again. So now the challenge that I have, because it's a long process, it's tedious. I have to go for affidavits. I have to go through I've even lost hope. I said I'm not doing it anymore. I just rather live with the old one, but it's at the risk of my children, because at some point they need my birth certificate, especially when they're going to get their passports. So now the biggest challenge that I have at the moment is that if I go and I apply again, go through the affidavit and everything. The next copy of birth certificate that I will get, actually one of the officers advised me and told me just to apply for a new birth certificate. But now that document will come out, written at the bottom that it is not proof of citizenship. So that will leave me stateless again. So now that's the biggest challenge.
So you are saying that your old birth certificate did not have the disclaimer. When did this disclaimer start appearing? And so that the lawyers can tell us, is it by dint of law or by dint of increasing the price of
I don't even know when it started. Because now my original one, even my children's birth certificate do not have that. But if I go from the latest ones that I've seen, there's that disclaimer. And I think it's around the year 2000.
And do we know if there's a legal notice that creates this?
There isn't.
Do we know there's a legal notice? So somebody just decided to add information to the Kenyan birth certificate.
It has not disclaimed.
So he said after the Nubian case. Sorry?
Because for children around the people who are 90s and thereabouts, the proof, this is not a proof of nationality, was in the birth certificate. But after 2013, they did not do that.
So at least we can conclude that we don't know whether there is legal grounds for this statement. Is this a factor for redress, in your view, from your report? Is it necessary for complete implementation?
It is, because there is a link between nationality, path, and that particular phrase. That phrase excludes.
Addressing that phrase in the birth certificate, is it a component of full implementation of this decision? What do you think? I understand you cannot speak officially from the commission, but
No, I can't. I can't speak on behalf of the committee because the committee engaged the government of Kenya, as you know, in a formal. But this is just me sharing my own opinion on this matter. Well, birth certificate in many African countries is not a proof of nationality in any way. The fact that your birth register does not necessarily mean that you have the nationality of that country. That's why we say birth certificate, birth of all children means including refugees, including foreigners, who, regardless of their nationality, when they are born in the territory of this country, their births should be registered. And this applies, so we have the principle of universality of birth registration. Universality of birth registration is birth registration to all children everywhere. That's what. So no discrimination attached to this process. So the committee, in its concluding observations, in its general comments, in its decisions, does not prescribe to the idea that birth certificate should be a proof of nationality. But birth certificate consists of details and contents which are very much relevant to one's nationality. Yeah. So the fact that I have seen many birth certificates in many African countries, they do not expressly write that this is not a proof of nationality, but of course they don't use it as nationality. So the intention behind matters now. Why the authorities in Kenya chose to include that phrase in the birth certificate and the intention behind, if that can be explained, that that would be good. But whether you have a birth certificate or not should not be an hindrance for you access to citizenship. But of course, having a birth certificate facilitates for you to get easy access for citizenship because it contains relevant information for proof of nationality.
Thank you so much for that information. You have a good clarity on Kenya's specific context. I have a question and then Michelle.
I think I can relate with what Ayali is saying a bit because I'm Nigerian and I live in the Gambia. My children were born in the Gambia. On their birth certificates, it indicates what the nationality of the parents is. So my children's birth certificate indicates that their father and mother are Nigerian and not Gambian. So for Nubian children, on their birth certificates, what nationality is indicated as the nationality of the parents?
No, they don't indicate nationality in their birth certificate.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, but that's a good point.
Okay, let me litigate this. So, yeah, Kenyan birth certificates generally do not.
They don't indicate, in the Kenyan birth certificate, they don't indicate nationality of the parents.
So by tradition, we don't indicate it. However, I think to respond to your question, your point, in the Kenyan context, for the longest time, you needed to take your birth certificate to even access your ID, which is the proof of citizenship. That is the context. So when it is put in the birth certificate, it is a disclaimer on your ability to get the ID, and therefore your citizenship.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yes, so as we have, that's what I'm trying to understand. The intention behind inserting that phrase. Yeah.
The intention is what is provided in the Nationality Act or the Constitution.
Yes.
Can you get citizenship or nationality by the mere fact of being born on the soil? That's what people use solely nationality. So if you don't have that, then you will have to indicate that this birth certificate is a proof of citizenship.
Yeah.
Yes, and I have children who were born in 3 countries. One who was born in Burundi, one who was born in Addis Ababa, and 4 who were born here in Kenya. So it is written black and white that birth certificates are not proofs of citizenship. Many people here have passport. Then your children have a Kenyan passport. No, they don't have a Kenyan passport. Many believe that by the fact that they were born here, they automatically become Kenyans. Different from the US, for instance. I would be surprised if a US birth certificate has that mention that the birth certificate is not proof of citizenship. Because they use solely citizenship. Very few countries have that nowadays.
So through you, moderator, only 3 countries in Africa, to be exact, applies the principle of jus soli with some limitations. Lesotho, Tanzania, and Chad. These are the only 3 countries which apply the principle of jus soli. That means that means the law of the soil, literally. So whenever, like when you were born in a particular territory in Chad, you are entitled to get your nationality based on the mere fact that you were born there. But of course, there is an application period. So there are, of course, it's not like automatic like the US, some European countries, Canada, a lot of Latin American countries. So there are administrative barriers and of course requirements attached to it. But in Kenya, the reason that I said, so whether the government, whether the birth certificate indicates this is not a proof of nationality or not, regardless of that phrase, it's not. Birth certificates, it's not a proof of nationality. So long as the intention behind of inserting this phrase is not discriminatory, so long as the intention is clear, the fact that it's written there by itself may not be a problem. So what I'm trying to investigate or ask is what what's the intention behind, and there is no discriminatory intention attached to this insertion.
There may be an effect.
Yes, or the effect.
Yeah. So, let me do this, right? I want us to sample this kind of interaction with a number of the recommendations. If you permit me, let us now say, back the line here is, the question remains unanswered, whether or not it is difficult for Nubian children to receive proof of nationality at birth, not registration of them. This is the recommendation of the Commission. Yes. And in the last session, we'll come back to now think of what are the practical things to do about it. But I think we can pass that. So maybe Yusuf, you could tell us the second.
I was to speak. Right.
Oh, yes. Yeah, this was different from the other. Okay.
So I've been wondering why was it that difficult for Nubian decent children to get registered at birth? Till when I have heard from the Nubian person itself. You know, I have never experienced any problem having birth certificates here in Kenya for my children while I'm Burundian. But now she just, because now for you to get the birth certificate of your child, I need to produce my passport and the passport of their mom. In the case of Nubian, the same law applies. So if they ask for ID of the father and the ID of the mom, and none of them have that ID, that's where the problem is. So we may have, as we talk about that problem, we may have also to address that issue of not having IDs for the parents. The breeding process.
So clearly, the first recommendation of the committee is pegged on the recommendation of the Commission. Yusuf? Oh, sorry.
The second one is that the Kenyan government takes measures to ensure that existing children of Nubian descent whose Kenyan nationality is recognized actually afforded the benefit of these new measures as a matter.
Please go it again.
That the government of Kenya takes measures to ensure that the existing children of Nubian descent whose Kenyan nationality is not recognized, those whose nationality is not recognized, are afforded the benefit of these new measures, which is the previous measures of the legislative norms.
Okay, so community. Comment, those who were denied citizenship because of the old system, has it become easy so that we can say we have fulfilled that?
In short, I want to say this nothing become easy. It has become so difficult. What my office is doing right now, I have a paralegals who are working with these young Nubians. From stage 1 to the last stage, vis-a-vis the government charter on birth certificate and ID card. To an extent, last year, or 2019, I sat with Honorable Matiangi. And of course, I was very happy because Matiangi told me, I know Nubians. Nubians are in Kisii. Nubians are in Mombasa. Nubians have married with other Kenyans. So Matiangi told me, in less than a month, tutamaliza shida yao. That is 2019. My dear brothers and sisters, this year, the beginning of this year, I, Shafi, with my colleagues from the Nubian Rights Forum, we come up with petition. We hand it over to Honorable Imran, and it's good. He took the petition to the floor of Parliament. And this is what Matiangi report indicated. Access national identity card by the Nubian community. Honorable Chair, the National Assembly Department Committee on Administration and National Security has considered a petition on the accession of national identity cards by the Nubian community and recommended that. The Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Interior and Coordination of National Government should initiate the process of recognizing the Nubian people as a tribe in the Republic of Kenya. The Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Interior and Coordination of National Government issues guidelines to ensure that the vetting process for the purposes of acquisition of the national identification document is transparent and non-discriminatory. I wish to state as follows, that is Matiang'i, not me. Honorable Chair, the Nubian community has been allocated a registration Kenyan Nubian Code number 50 for the processing and issuance of national identity cards. The recognition vetting guidelines have been issued to the Nubian County Commissioner Kibra, Deputy County Commissioner, and to the Registrar of Persons in Kibra County to enable them conduct the vetting stroke identification exercise in a transparent and non-discriminatory manner, and all eligible identity card applicants. As the chairman of the identification committee, the Deputy County Commissioner in Kibra has been asked to increase the number of monthly vetting for those seeking identification cards and new applicants. The Kibra Sub-County Registrar of Persons has been advised to be undertaking verification of birth certificates in advance to avoid delays in the actual identification and registration processes. This is Matiang'i. So what I'm asking, Matiang'i is not telling us the reason why they are vetting the Nubians. Nubians have not come from the borderline. Kibra is in the middle, center of the capital city of Kenya. We are talking to Matiang'i in that petition as Nubian community in Kenya. Matiang'i is telling us, is giving us an answer, narrowing us down as the Kibra Nubians. And talking to the sub-county coordinator, that is DC. What does that look like? Are they implementing the decision, or they are making some more hurdles? Okay, I want to tell you I am from Kisii. In Kisii, last few months, they come up with demonstration on these matters of vetting. Now, the vetting, some hurdles have been added. I'm coming from Meru last 2 days. The Meru Nubians have assimilated to the Meru community, adding their names. I have one here for everybody to see. A Nubian guy add Muriuki so that he can resting my case.
Okay, so you've read from the Hansard, right?
Yes.
So in the record of Parliament.
Yes.
Now look at the lawyers. Does that mean, therefore, that whatever he's saying in the Hansard has been followed at least?
Make things become difficult.
So, first, the problem with the response he gives Parliament on official record addresses Kibra and not the other Nubians in other parts of the country. But then, even Kibra, it has not been addressed. Yes.
You know, also as Nubians, we have single parents. A mother can have a son or a daughter. For instance, you see, when you want to register, maybe the name of the father is not going to appear anywhere. For example, you can see, like, if you do like this, Samaina Wairimu. But a Nubian cannot do Musa Fatuma, for example. You see, now when the citizen is pegged on the father's name, now it becomes very hard for that woman either to register the son or the daughter. The only way he can do it is now to add maybe his brother's name, who is going to be the uncle of that and become the father. So you see, it's very hard to register a single parent for a Nubian, because you cannot write the name of a mother as the only parent. So that is also another case.
Okay. And then I'd like to hear from Ngek about this, because now this is about Nubian women's rights. Yes.
Yeah, about what I say, just add like my older sister, Yasmin, her second name is Samira, and her third name is Oganga. So the word Oganga have all the things because she was Yasmin, Samira, Oganga. They should put the 3 names on the ID card, but they just said like come 2 years after this. With 18, so she will come as 20 years to get the ID or something.
So because of the names, your sister's ID has been delayed. Ngek, this is intersectionality at its peak. So the Nubian woman is suffering as a Nubian and as a woman.
Okay. Nowadays we are NGC, not Ngek.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. NGC, National Gender and Equality Commission. Okay. We have the mandate of fighting and discrimination against any Kenyan. And therefore, we don't just go to the people who are discriminated. They have to file cases with us. And then our legal department follows up, accessing, contacting the complainant and the person discriminating, so that they can assist. We can't just go asking who is discriminated or how are you. You have to come to our commission, file a case, then it should be followed up.
Do you have a history of resolving it with another community's situation that could inspire the activity of the Nubian community? Yeah, the point is, the other side of Mato listening. I know it's a tough question.
Can I say something? Only for my people who are coming from Zindek. NGC, I've been working with you guys long ago. Shante is my personal friend. So our case is there. Your people came to the ground, see each and everything, how it is being done. Like, for example, it's only a Nubian who can go for an ID on Tuesday and Thursdays, and not Monday to Friday. They've come down there, but I don't know what happens. I have not received any report. And even in the last 2 weeks, the meeting was there, I was there. I was part of it. So what I want to say here very clear, whatever NGEC is it is it is an institution, it's a constitutional institution, but paid by the government. So I don't see if they have any effort to push the government. This thing of nationality, in reality, it is to be finalized by Kibichu and Matiang'i, and no one else. We know we have Kenya National Human Rights Commission. They will do absolutely nothing. It is only Kibichu. I remember when I was in court in Huduma to give evidence, we were with Kibichu. If you hear what Kibichu is saying relating to what we are speaking right now, implementation of the Athewa report, then you will know there's no goodwill from the government. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I wanted to hear from my brother in Kenya National Commission for Human Rights on that point as well. I'm quite curious to see, as you can see, I'm trying to figure out what the Chapter 15 institutions could do in this regard.
Maybe they might want to see it.
Thank you for. Thank you for the opportunity. One of the things that I would agree
with Shafi, and Shafi, I believe we've interacted in a different context when there were evictions and we were trying to mediate and see to it that the interests of the community are not disregarded. I agree that the biggest problem is the question of political goodwill, and tied to that, respect for the rule of law. Because if you look at it critically, this is not unique to the decisions of the regional or international human rights mechanisms. We have other decisions from our domestic courts that have not been given effect. And Shafi, because you highlighted your experience in the Huduma number bill, part of the things that can be done from the way I look at it is strategic litigation. And I just highlight that one case because we also participated. I believe the Nubian Human Rights Forum was the first petitioner. There was another organization, then ourselves. We had filed and then the issues were consolidated. And the key argument is that because it's so hard for this community to get these identification documents, if you tie issuance of this card to the national identification card, and you subsequent to that, tie that to the provision of government services, indirectly, it's like you're telling this community you cannot access government services. So these are some of the critical things that need to be addressed. I remember part of the things that can be done is issuance of advisories, but there must be that political goodwill. We've done quite a number of advisories, including increasing the frequency and the duration for the vetting. I think the community would bear me witness that I think they only have 2 days, but they will have the exact details. But administratively, this can very easily be sorted out. We just need to increase the frequency and the duration that vetting has to happen. Thank you.
So if you haven't noticed, we are already chipping into the Commission's recommendations, but this is part of the design because the two cases are intertwined. But I'm reading you to be saying that vetting is there, rather than challenging the vetting itself, which I think is what Shafi was saying. And I wonder, even as we're debating whether or not Ministry of Interior will get rid of vetting, 15 years ago, could the Commission walk into a prison for monitoring? How has the journey been so that now the Kenya National Commission for Human Rights has forced, in a way, the prison service to recognize that it can do prison visits? What if then that the commissions would have a monitoring role in the vetting? So if executive does not want to get rid of vetting, then let's sit and see whether you're doing it right. Question.
Thank you. I was wondering, okay, why are we not also talking about the assimilation? It has become so rampant. I have to be a people or a to get an ID if I want it really quick. Can somebody help us from the law fraternity? Do we really have to be a Meru or a Kikuyu to get ID and we are Nubians? We want our real identity. We don't want to assimilate to other people.
Thank you. I think we need to appreciate the limits of the law, the limitations of the law, and the power of politics. If you are going to apply for an ID at the Ministry of Home Affairs, you will follow a process which is provided for. If the law has flaws, then you will just continuously be denied. But now look at it from this perspective. Always, from a few situations that I know, the issuance of IDs to stateless persons on a territory is most of the case a deliberate decision, a deliberate political decision to do so by those who have power to do that. In the Uganda 1995 Constitution, Rwanda Rwandans were recognized. In the 2015 amendment introduced now Rundi. So Barundi as a tribe in Uganda, which means that the Burundian community in Uganda can claim the Ugandan ID. So much as we try to go through what the law provides for, we should also contemplate influencing the politics or the politicians like Matiang'i and others to just take it to the government of Kenya to take a deliberate decision to issue IDs to all Nubians who have the age of having an ID to be recognized as Kenyan citizens. That is another avenue we could be contemplating.
From the recommendation number 1 and recommendation number 2, they have a correlation. But we are seeing the government not implementing this recommendation because, one, I would say, for Kenyan Nubians or Nubians whose descent is unknown, the recommendation from the committee is that the children of these people who are not recognized but they are Nubians, their children to be given birth certificate, right? This is to prevent these children who will become adults and have kids, and then their kids also do what? Lack birth certificate. And that is where we are heading, because the government is not implementing this decision, because we have, as Shafi said, organization, majorly people come, please kindly assist us in obtaining birth certificate. But when you go and apply for a person who claim to be a Nubian, a Kenyan Nubian, but they don't have an ID, you see they are captured in recommendation number 2, because it says not recognized. So it would have been prerequisite for the government to give the children of these people of this nature the birth certificate to avoid or to prevent further discrimination of the community. And in recommendation number 1, with the last part is saying acquire a Kenyan nationality and the proof of such a nationality at birth. That's a good recommendation in terms of I have already been recognized to be a Kenyan by birth, be a Kenyan nationality at the point that I've been given this birth certificate. The colleague said that in Nigeria, yes, you can get a birth certificate. You're not a Nigerian, but in the birth certificate, it would state what is the nationality of the parent, right? So if as a country, we can go that direction and say, yes, you've given birth in Kenya. The nationality of this parent is either a Kenyan. Leaving it open is where the problem starts. Because when you leave it open, the registrar will tell you, I don't know if you're a Kenyan or not. Yet, I remember I have a birth certificate. I'm going to apply for an ID. They need a Ken to prove my nationality. I applied, I got my birth certificate with my parents' ID. But they still have a question, the issue of vetting coming in. Why do you vet me? I already have my birth certificate. My birth certificate should state what is the nationality of my parent.
And this is an interesting point, because then there is a distinct information separate.
And to add on top of our point, the fact that my parent has a Kenyan ID already states that my parent is a Kenyan. So why do I need again to go through vetting? To be vetted again, to have to prove that I'm a Kenyan. I think that lies with the government to prove if I'm a Kenyan or not for me to prove to them that I'm a Kenyan.
And it highly reminds me again. So there are these two different ones. One where the committee is saying, register the child regardless of nationality. So the issue of requiring an ID to register the birth, to have a birth certificate, should not even arise.
But on the other hand, it is clear that it is. We had a conference about 3 weeks ago, and this term came up. I like it. It's administrative continuities. They just keep asking it until they receive a memo from the PS. The next recommendation, again, we do the same thing. We have ventilated some problems, some ideas around it. We've not fully ventilated it, right? But we are thinking through. Let's jump to the next one. Yusuf, you're proposing to read the two together? And oh, wait a minute.
The next recommendation is that the government implements its birth registration system in a non-discriminatory manner and takes all necessary legislative, administrative, and other measures to ensure that the children of Nubian descent are registered immediately after. I was linking that one with the one from the Commission. It says that the Republic of the Republic of Kenya should establish objective, transparent, non-discriminatory criteria and procedures for determining Kenyan citizenship.
Can you repeat that question?
Repeat it again.
The Commission.
The Republic of Kenya should establish objective, transparent, and non-discriminatory criteria for determining Kenyan citizenship.
This point is linked to, very closely linked to the last one, right? Shafi, I'd love to come back to you again. You mentioned vetting being one of the difficulties. Is there any other difficulty that we need to enumerate?
Of course, if one is vetting, the second one now is to stop discrimination. All Nubian children reaching 18 years should go for their IDs from Monday to Friday. Number 3, Honorable Matiangi, on his report, is talking about birth certificate to be in short, we have some fake birth certificates. And I want to believe that having a fake birth certificate is not Nubian alone, it's all Kenya. So by telling Nubians alone their birth certificate to be verified and not telling the larger Kenyans, that is discrimination again. I think up to here, maybe my colleague can add anything. Do you have anything?
So now there is number of days of service, yeah, which is a clear Article 47 issue. There is the vetting, and there is the singling out Nubian certificates. So we're listing this here, so we keep remembering this. Yes.
So I want to mention about the applications that are being done in the schools, secondary schools. When you are a Nubian, you will be told now you have to go and register it from your village. But the rest will be registered at school and they will get there. So it's still another part of it.
Can you explain how? Is that for ID?
When you are applying for this time,
ID
in schools.
Okay.
They do application at the secondary schools when you reach 18. But for a Nubian, will be asked, you have to go to your village for registration. So you see, it's a part of discrimination which also happens.
I have one point. Okay, last point.
On registration, especially of birth, I think the government is, I'd say they are kind of sleeping on the job. Unless the civil society takes over, because at some point I remember Shafi and his organization had to do mass birth registration, birth certificate registration, going around, not just for the Nubian community, but even for that Kibra community at large. That was back then. Then on vetting, who are these people who are supposed to vet the Nubians? Because you find that it is the civil, the DCCs, the chiefs, the elders are there, but most of the questions are asked by the administration and not the elders. Sorry, that leaves a lot of questions. Do these administration know the elders? And if some of the elders are allowed to ask, they'll ask, but they ask questions that do not even relate the vetting. So they're there to sit, and if asked, do you know this person? It's either not, say no. So they don't talk much.
So the elders don't participate in the decision making.
Yes, and then there's this final one now, when it comes to registration. Kind of that Nubian youth, adult youth is being discriminated against. Because now you are separating a Nubian who's working and a Nubian who's not working. How many Nubian work? How many Nubians work and are civil servants? Because if you're a child of a Nubian, but your parent is a civil servant, you automatically qualify to get an ID without going through vetting.
Yes. But actually, so again, is there a legal notice?
Now that is the
I just want to add, the Nubians are all over the country. But you find a problem where I had a recent problem, a Nubian boy from Isiolo applying for ID card, it came all the way to NSSF. And then it has been rejected. And being told you have to go to elders for an affidavit. In Isiolo, the NRB has not identified any Nubian elder to be sitting for that wedding. So you see that challenge. That young man has to track all the way to Nairobi to find the Nubian Council of Elders for that affidavit.
Again, I wonder if provincial administration, I'm calling it by its old name, will not give up vetting. Can this vetting be monitored? What difference would it make? I have one question. Do Nubian children, do Nubian parents struggle with getting their children registered in NEMIS for the education system? What would be the problem with NEMIS?
some are, to be registered in NEMIS, you must have a birth certificate.
So without the birth certificate, you can't get NEMIS number. You can't get NEMIS number, you're not sitting. So you will not be, you will be educated, but there will be no certification.
You need proof of you need a document to prove that you can go all the way to Form 4 and everywhere, but you need a document to prove. And now we have the CBC. They'll be sitting for their first exams. You need you need your document, and the registration has already been done. So it means that Nubian child who doesn't have a birth certificate has been left out and has to repeat until they are registered. The problem is this time round, the first batch, the first candidates were registered when they were in grade 3, and right now it's being done when they are in grade 1. Then you find that there are parents whose children who cannot afford to take their children to public schools. They take their children to upgrade schools within the community. The upgrade schools do not have the capacity to register these kids. They bring them back to the public school. And now a child is supposed to sit for grade 6, has to repeat grade 5. Then there's the struggle with the head teachers. Then they have to go back to Nubian Rights Forum. I know they have a lot of cases when it comes to that. Now acquiring that birth certificate for the child to be registered to see. So their children will be left out. Okay, they've not been registered.
So for the benefit of our colleagues, and so NEMIS
You know what it means and the education. Yeah, and it doesn't hit me that now with CBC, the requirement for registration is much earlier.
Yeah.
Right now, for you to be registered for grade 1, you have to have your birth certificate. You can't start grade 1. Not initially you were seeking for
You had 8 years.
Yeah, you had 8 years of looking for the birth certificate. But right now you have to have, but as you're being enrolled in grade 1, you have to have your birth certificate.
The layers are becoming more complex, clearly appropriate, right? So the urgency is now even worse than it was at filing of the case.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for raising these issues. And this is, I remember when the government of Kenya reports, they tried to put this in the context of creating demand for birth restriction. You see, but this is when creating demand backfires. And if you don't get the supply side right, and if you're trying to create a demand for birth registration without providing the supply right, you're not getting it wrong. Because it's a government's responsibility to make birth registration accessible with no discriminatory practices at all to all who are born here in Kenya, including Nubians in this case. And now the government is failing to make that accessible to all, and now you're telling you that you cannot access services like education without a birth certificate. So this has been raised, and I'm sure regardless of the intention of this creating demand approach that the government has put in place, colleagues and within the authorities, they would be able to look at this again so that they can actually do not subject accessing basic services and rights like education and health with birth certificate and birth registration as it's happening now. Thank you.
You have a point?
Yes. I am speaking as the National Council for Children's Services. Now, as I look at it, the intention of the government then, by making a birth certificate a requirement for them to sit for national exam, was to cure the issue of late registration.
Yeah.
But upon the realization that it was then making other children in school, other strategies were adopted. We have now linked birth registration to health, especially late. Children are registered at birth, at facility level. The ones who are not registered at the facilities at birth are registered during the routine clinics, the wellness, the baby wellness clinics.
So you're speaking to the notification?
Yes, registration. There are two aspects. When we speak about birth registration, there are two aspects here. There is registration and then there is certification. Yeah, so registration is done at birth and registration facilitates certification.
So you come again. So the term that at least I experienced, I got a document called birth notification.
That is registration.
That's what you're calling registration.
Yes.
And it is by dint of that, then government can come to committee and say, we are registering everybody because there is a birth notification.
Yes.
In reality, the birth notification is not a registration.
The notification facilitates certification. It is on the basis of that notification that you get a birth certificate.
Okay. Again, sorry for going because I'm trying. I completely. I'm happy with the clarification of the policy. I'm interested in the lived reality, whether it connects. Yeah, the hand up from the minute you started speaking. Is the notification, registered?
The layman's point of view that I don't have a birth certificate during that registration, and they don't know that their birth is registered. Even there is no awareness that when you give birth in the hospital, There's no awareness for that.
May I just stop you there? So therefore, when the committee is understanding the requirement in the recommendation that all Kenyan children be registered, you mean the certificate or the notification?
Yeah, birth notification is, I'm sure what she was saying is beyond notification. The way, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure she's the better place to speak about it. They put the civil registration processes in the health centers and everything. So the births can be registered, but so long as you don't certify it, the process is not complete. So from the committee's point of view, births should be registered. It should be like a one-day service. You need to be able to register, and they have introduced this in theory. I'm not sure about the practice in Kenya here, but you have to register your child, and then get a certificate immediately. It should be a one-day service. So people should be able to date.
What does that?
Yeah. People should be. Look, let me explain the challenge. In many places, people might have to travel to get their children registered, right? If you ask them to come again another day to get their certificate, you are actually putting a barrier, because they have to incur transportation costs and everything. So because birth certification services may not be as accessible as they're supposed to. So birth certificate registration should be linked with certification so that it can be complete.
Okay, that has already, this is excellent dialogue. It has already thrown up some ideas. There is fire burning to make some responses. But I want you, the community, to respond, having another point that the two of you want to ask, and then you will hear your lead then.
I'm looking at the recommendations, especially recommendation number 3. The committee was very clear that these mechanisms should be taken to ensure all children of Nubian descent are registered immediately after birth. So I think that tries to address what we are grappling with. Is it that instant moment where even in some hospital or medical facilities, they can issue those birth notifications, and then they will file their returns with the registrar of births and deaths to basically take the numbers of all children that are being born? Or is it now the question of issuance of the birth certificate, which comes a bit later? But this, my reading is immediately after birth, which my interpretation, I could be wrong, speaks to the notification.
I think I'm taking off from where it stopped, because we're learning that people have to present their parents' IDs or birth certificates to get their own birth certificates. Where exactly is the problem? Is it at the hospitals that Nubians start to have problems with registering? Or at what stage do you have to present your parents' identity cards or something? Is it at the notification stage or at the certification stage?
I think it's important we emphasize a particular point. The recommendation is on registration. You don't have to be Kenyan to be issued a birth certificate. The birth certificate only shows you were born here. Evidence of birth that XYZ was born in Kibera. So it's in no way a document that would show you're Kenyan. Kenyan nationality is determined by what is in Kenya's constitution. But what we say is, for as long as you're born here, whether you're Nubian, whether you're Gambian, your parents are Gambian, you deserve to be registered. So it is wrong for you to ask for their parents' birth certificates. I think it's important we have that at the back of our minds.
Okay, so let me try and unpack this so that hopefully we clarify some points. I know it's funny. When the case was filed, so we're talking 2008, 2006, and 2009.
Yes.
Was there a problem getting back notifications?
Now, here's another bigger problem. Not everybody, not every woman is back at a health facility. There are those who are attended to by traditional birth attendants, that is one. Then we also have like clinics within the community, inside the village, the settlement. They are not government health facilities. But you find that a mother goes into labor and decides to go, I mean, then almost giving back and the shortest distance that she has is between her and that health facility, which is not a government institution. So she goes there. Now that is when the problem starts. She's getting a notification from that place, and you have very limited government institutions within the community. I think two or just one or two as in now. Back then, we didn't have any. You either had to go to Bagadi, Pumwani, any other government facility that is outside Kibra.
I just want to add something. Before they had given an option that you can register from the office of the administration, but the notification are not there. So that was a big hope that for women who give birth from home, register from the administration office. Now, after registration, for example, now, these things now are being done digitally. Most of them, maybe people from, I'm not talking now, maybe Nubians are from the town. What about the people from the village, where there is no access even of a network? After maybe even the registration, which was supposed to be done by the local administration, is not there. How can that person access this registration or that document that the certificate did? It's a challenge.
So again, let's be clear for the note taking. Not all births get notified. I know you want me to use that term that you use. I'll come to it, because I know that document is written notification. Two, when you digitize the notification, not all spaces have digital services. Does that affect Nubian? Is it a matter for us to discuss?
The issue of maybe the Nubians, this recommendation was not only for the Nubians. In fact, it's all for the Kenyan children. Though the Nubians took the case to Gambia, but it is for the Kenyan children.
Okay. Okay. So I want to hear you, and then I want us to go through that whole process. Yeah, we are still at notification.
Now, the idea that the gentleman presented is the idea is not that you give birth to a facility, the birth is registered, you get your birth certificate, right?
That's notification.
No, we are saying it's certificate. We finish with the registration.
What did you mean? Certification?
You see, no, look, sorry, there is a bit of mix about birth registration and birth notification. What you're getting from the health facilities is notification. Now, your birth must be registered through the authorities, to the right channels, and that certificate comes from the authorities and not from the health facilities. So not only like the committee needs a concluding observations and recommends that birth notification should be done by the clinics, hospitals, religious institutions, chiefs, traditional institutions, and everything, because the challenge that we have, right? And it's also like that in many other countries in other parts of the world. Notifications should be done, but there should be a very easy way of reporting or notifying births of individuals to the right authorities. Now, that is responsible to register births. And then that's where now the certification comes in. Once your birth is not notified but registered, you should be able to get your birth certificate with no cost and without any delay. Now that I have the just 30 seconds. How immediate is immediate? Not only the committee's decision, but even the charter says that children should be registered immediately after birth. But we are not notification, again, registration immediately after birth. So now we ask ourselves, how immediate is immediate? The committee in its general comment on Article 6 provides an explanation. Of course, sometimes registration immediately, like after an hour or two, it may not be possible, right? It may not be realistic, and it's true. So that's why in other parts of Africa, there are traditional naming ceremonies. And, parents register their children after those kind of ceremonies as well. So the committee gave recognition to these traditional ceremonies, traditional, practices. So it said in its general comment, it should not be like after a year or something. Immediately should be interpreted in a very narrow way. To say that within a few weeks of birth. That's the kind of guidance that the committee provides in its general comment on Article 6. So again, we're not talking about notification. Notification has to be done immediately after birth, and then registration and certification should come through the relevant channels within the authorities. And the certificate should also be granted to the children.
So, there's quite a bit of unpacking of the process. Allow me to submit an idea. Let's see whether we can canvass it in detail in the afternoon, which is the Kenyan lived experience is notification, registration, certification. The lived experience.
Yes. Yeah, I'm talking about this. I have 4 kids who were born here, who were registered here. So, and actually I wanted to introduce another thing to discuss.
Very briefly, because we are planning.
Yes. The birth certificate for my daughter was born in 2009. Contains that phrase that the birth certificate is not a proof of citizenship. The one who was born in 2016 and whose birth certificate I got last year does not have that phrase. So you may find out why, but there must be a reason why it's no longer there. But what I wanted to say is that even private health institutions actually issue joint notifications. Because all my students will not find it in the private facility, it issues. Okay, now I have
Okay, so again, this is a submission. I just wanted to hear Carol quickly on whether that sense of lived reality is what the policy says.
Now, what the law says is that all children should be registered at birth, and that is what Kenya aspires to do. And that aspect of giving you the notification to us is, starting the process of registration.
So it is the registration.
Yes, it is. Yes, and then once now you present yourself and the other requirements, the ID of the parents, is when now you get the certificate. Yeah. And then I also want to speak to her issue of no notification. Now, if a child is not born in hospital, now the sub chief has the duty to register that birth, initial notification to the parent. Now, sometimes the sub chief may not be aware, so the onus is on the parent to report this birth. Yeah.
And I agree with you, because I think what's happening here, and this is beautiful, is that we are really seeing that actually if the policy as drafted and enacted is administered by those who should administer it, there would be hardly problems. But as you speak, I can see, I check your head like that, the sub-chief doesn't do it. So I am wondering why that is the difference. I'm just saying that actually happening. Yeah?
Okay, which is fine. We are not at 100%. We admit that Kenya is not even at 100% on achieving universal registration. We are at, I think, about 82%. We are still working towards 100. And as citizens,
we also have a responsibility to hold the people who should serve us to account. Let us report that sub-chief who is not doing their work.
Don't have the registration.
Okay, so
They don't have the registration.
okay, so again,
Now, again, if you're not able to be registered by the sub-chief, we will address the issue of the missing registration book.
okay, but
When
yeah,
you take your child for clinic, you're supposed to be registered. The first illegal, you're 6 weeks, you're supposed to be registered at that point.
okay, so I think we are seeing, at the very least, what I'm seeing here is gaps, right? Which we can think through. Because remember, what we came here to do is in the dialogue, see where the gaps are. And I thank you all for this contribution. I would really, because it's way past 1, and this actually requires some ventilation. Would you imagine that we have not touched the recommendations on land? So, do we need land before we think about land? Do we need land before we think about land? Or do we need land before we think about lunch? I beg that we take a break and reconvene at 2 to continue the ventilation about the remaining recommendations. And as you can see, this is the path we are following. So, you see, we raise the recommendations and ventilate the policy versus lived reality questions. And out of there, in the last session, we can now say, okay, what are the most reasonable things we can do? So, may we all enjoy our lunch. Eat heavily. The last question is heavy.
Thank you.